给你发 email 了吗？我听不见你说话了。
他给我打电话了。
哦，他给你打电话了。你帮他 run 一下就可以了，是吧？
对，我帮他问一下。
好，谢谢。
Can you see me?
哎，我现在看好像是不是来了？
Is the Chinese person?
叫什么东西的 ？David 什么玩意
Hello?
对对对。
Hello.
Hello, David?
Hey, Dave. What's up?
Hey, can you see me?
我在会上
No.
聊。
There's someone speaking Chinese on the line. Do you hear that?
Yeah, somebody hijacked you hijacked it.
I hijacked it?
Mhm.
What do you mean?
They hijacked your webinar. That's what they're doing now, like on Zoom. Gotta get them off.
Hold on a second. My daughter's trying to get me in through my laptop. Right now I'm on my cell phone. Give me a second.
Hello.
Yep. Hello?
Hey, how are you doing?
Are you on my Zoom call?
Yes.
Who is this?
This is Tiger.
Tiger?
Uh-huh. Are you
Okay.
David?
Yeah, I'm David. Yeah.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good, good. Okay.
Can you
I'm
see
trying
me?
to I'm trying to figure this out. Hold on, please. Hold on, please.
Okay.
What do I do here to get the video?
It doesn't even say that you're on it. It doesn't even look like you're on it.
Hold on.
They see me? Or
Yeah, they can see you. This is what they say.
Hi, David.
Yes.
No, I was saying hi to David Denenberg.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Shirley,
Yes,
how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great.
Awesome.
Hi,
Why am I
David.
not
This
able
is
to get in?
Kelly.
Hi, Kelly. How are you?
How are you doing?
We're meeting.
For tonight, I'm doing
Okay.
great.
All right. Now we're online
Good
here.
to hear.
Okay, great. Okay, let's see. Let's see who's on here. Can anybody see me?
I think
Yeah.
I can see you.
There we go. There's my daughter. All right. I'll just do it that way. All right, so we have, who's that? Tiger Wu. Who's Tiger Wu?
Tiger's in my office, David.
Okay, got it. And who's speaking?
Kelly?
Kelly Zhang.
Yes.
All right, hold on a second. Whoop, shit.
Zoom.
Let's try that again. Let's see who else is on here. All right, so it's Kelly. Gary's on.
I'm on.
Tell who each person is.
Alright.
Say Tiger.
All right, so, all right. All right, perfect.
I'm on now.
All right, hi Shirley, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Hold on. Let me just, I'm using my cell phone because for some reason I couldn't get it through my laptop. All right, so people are still requesting to get on here, but if they can't get on, it's their problem. All right, so I don't know, for anybody that doesn't know, David's been my attorney for probably over 20 years we've known each other.
That's correct.
Yeah, and you're second generation lawyer.
Third
Third, really?
Third generation.
Wow, I didn't realize. So your grandfather was a lawyer?
So my family's been in business 80 years.
That's amazing. Okay, we have a couple more people coming on right now. We have Kirk. Kirk, you there? Hello, Kirk. All right. So, so you've been through several recessions. So I've been in business now 32 years, and I have the hair to prove it. And the last Great Recession from 2008, I lost a lot of properties, and David was one of the people that represented me when the banks were coming for my neck. Right, David? Fun times?
That was correct.
Right, and he's also represented me against several tenants, But the interesting thing about David is that, you know, he not only represents owners of property, he also represents tenants. So a couple nights ago, I decided to, you know, give him a call, and some of the things that he had to say were very sobering, and it helped me connect the dots on a lot of things. And unfortunately, one of the conclusions I think I'm coming to is a total collapse of the real estate market. Because, you know, as I see it, one of the motivating factors for wanting to own, let's say, investment property is expecting, Betty, turn that off, please, is
The interview.
Gary said you have to be quiet because you're being way too loud.
I'm Latina, Gary. I can't help it.
No, he's not on here. Don't worry.
Oh.
And that's not an excuse.
Who's
Anyway,
Gary?
no, that's David Denenberg right
Oh,
there.
hi. How are you?
And there's several other people. Kara's on here too. Unmute Kara.
It's supposed to be all together.
All right. Is it supposed
So-
to be FaceTime?
No, Betty, you want to sit next to me? Sit next to me. So one of the only motivating factors in buying real estate as an investment is to be able to get rent from it. But without courts, people don't necessarily have to pay you. And what David said to me, he said, you know, if you're a Philadelphia lawyer and someone comes in front of you that's a tenant, are you going to evict that person? If the person says, look, I'm out of work, it's not my fault, I always paid my bills on time. So it's a tough situation. And then, you know, if you have mortgages like I had back in 2008 on your properties, you can't pay the bank. You can't pay the bank, you can't pay the taxes, you can't pay the insurance, you can't do the maintenance, you can't do maintenance on the property. They call license and inspection. License and inspection comes out and then they get on your ass. Then what do you do? So maybe you want to kind of expand a little bit on that perspective.
Sure. These are crazy times in the industry. I'm sure some of you know that I do both landlord and tenant work. About 50% of the time I represent landlords and 50% of the time I represent tenants. And when the courts closed down on March 13th, there have been about 10,000 landlord-tenant cases that have been postponed. No one knows when the courts are going to open up. And most of the time that probably the end of May, beginning of June is what I understand the courts may not open up. How do you get a hearing when there's 200-300 people in the room? These are all great questions, and I'm not sure I have answers to them.
50%.
But David and I were talking the other day, and no one seems to know how this situation is going to work out when the courts do open up.
Have you been in communication with anybody from the courts or other attorneys and had conversations where the two of you were sort of speculating back and forth on what some possible solutions could be?
So today was the first day that I got an email from the president judge, Judge Moss, about holding Zoom hearings.
Really?
Yeah, for certain, not landlord-tenant matters, but for small claims. And I'm not sure any of my clients or a lot of my clients who were in small claims would not have the access to Zoom.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know if I would like to try a case with my client in her home, me sitting in my home and trying to prep her for a hearing. And maybe this is the way of the future for all cases that are going to go forward in the next 3, 4, 5 months. I don't know the answer.
Well, I guess there would be nothing compelling people to do Zoom because there's no precedent for it. And if they do it, it would only have to be if everyone consents to it, correct?
That is correct. And you would have to send, I guess, an email back to whoever the liaison is for the court agreeing to do Zoom the other attorney on the opposite side would have to agree to do Zoom, and everybody would have to be on Zoom at a certain time.
Got it.
I think it's very difficult.
Well, there's no precedent for it, so everyone's sort of making it up as they go along. And hell, I mean, even if, let's say you're on that Zoom call and you've consented, might it not, if you lose, couldn't it also be some kind of grounds for an appeal if you lose?
Well, if it was a municipal court hearing, you always have the right to appeal. Again, if the courts are closed, all you can do is file the appeal. I don't know if it will be timestamped if you file it. These are all just crazy times.
Have you been in communication with anyone else besides the president judge?
Well, I personally haven't been in communications with Brad Moss, but I did get the first email today since March 13th that they're trying to come up with an idea if there's two lawyers on both sides.
I don't understand what you mean. Maybe clarify that for me.
Say that one more time, Dave.
Clarify that for me, because I'm not sure what you mean by that.
So they don't want to hold a Zoom hearing if there aren't two lawyers, one for the landlord and one for the tenant, or one for the plaintiff and one for the defendant.
Oh, well, all right. So can you hear
You
me?
can hear, yeah.
My brother-in-law is actually couldn't get in on the call, so he's kind of like listening. So just maybe put the phone here. Got it. So, so we ran into each other a couple of months ago, and you'd shared with me that you'd sold the majority of your rental properties, and so I guess my question is, if you're a property owner right now and your tenants stop paying you, short of evicting them, what else would you do? What advice would you have for any landlords right now?
Well, as I said earlier, that these are really, really, really trying times. If a tenant who is a bartender or has a job and doesn't have any income, how are they going to pay your rent?
Right.
So it's a cascading, as we spoke, it's a cascading effect that if there's no rent coming in, no rent being paid, you can't pay your mortgage if you're a landlord. The landlord can't bring the tenant to court. Our courts are closed at least until June 1st. That means at least 3 months of rent you may never see.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get your residential license. You can't get a certificate of rental suitability. It's a real bad time for landlords.
1 second. Hey, whoever is making noise in the background, could you mute your phone, please? Because we're getting a lot of background noise, banging and such. Thank you. So you were saying, David?
Yeah, it's a real bad time for landlords. Can't use the court. There's a stay on all evictions. There's a stay on filing writs of possession, alias writs of possession. Landlords are in a bad way if you're not collecting rent.
Right. And if you are, just consider yourself lucky.
By the time we get back to court, there'll be at least 10,000 cases in a backlog. They hear about 150 cases a day.
150. I thought it was 100. Okay.
It's about 100 in the morning and 50 in the afternoon.
Well, you were saying that before you can even get a hearing, your paperwork has to be processed, and that there's 3 people processing all of those cases. And you think that those 3 people do about 150 cases a day?
Well, there's one judge who sits in landlord-tenant court.
Okay.
When you file a case, it takes about 30 to 35 days to get a hearing.
Okay.
You're not getting a hearing date because there's nobody sitting over in court processing your work. There's no way to evict anybody.
What? Okay. So let's just speculate for a moment, right? Let's say courts open June 1st, My tenant hasn't paid me in 3 months. Presuming I have all my ducks in a row, because unless, like you said, I have my up-to-date rental license, business privilege license. What else is required? Lead, something with lead, right?
If you have a child less than 7, you need a lead safe certificate. You need a certificate of rental suitability.
Okay, so let's just presume for a moment that I have all my ducks in a row, right? How long before I get a hearing?
I would say after July 4th,
Oh, so
maybe
it's sooner than I thought.
35 days from June 1st.
Okay.
So wait a second. So you said, I already have my rental licenses. Luckily, my bank is giving me interest-only loans, so my mortgage payments have been in half. And luckily, I would say most of my tenants paid rent already. But you said that I would need another certificate, a certificate of rental suitability, as well as my rental license?
Do you know what a certificate of rental suitability is?
I only know what a rental license is. I don't know if it's the same thing.
It's not. If you take a look at if you take a look tomorrow at your rental license, there's a box halfway down the page will say you need to provide a certificate of rental suitability and Partners for Good Housing booklet to the tenant at the inception of the lease. If you don't, you're not entitled to collect rent. I can't help you come to court if the tenant stops you from paying the rent.
Okay, and if I have a management company, I just have to check if they did it.
Yes, and you should have a copy in your file, dated and signed by you.
Okay.
And the tenant? Does it have to be signed by the tenant as well?
No, but the word in the ordinance is, I'm trying to think of the exact word. How do you prove you gave the certificate to the tenant? The best way to do it is if you have them initialed at the bottom.
Okay.
But a lot of management companies really don't know how to perfect that. I know Shirley does, right, Shirley?
Yep.
Because we've been through it.
Okay. My brother-in-law had a question. He wanted to know if
It's the
same thing applies to commercial space.
So commercial landlords in Philadelphia, and I'm only talking about Philadelphia, only needs a business privilege license, not a residential rental license.
No. I get that. I don't think that's what he was asking, right, Miguel?
Yeah, see if, in the same predicament, if they don't pay you, what's the process? Same process as a residential?
No. You don't need a residential license. That's what he just said. Why would you need that?
Same process.
It's still an eviction.
For 3 or 4 months.
Right. But what my understanding is that a lot of people are just could be walking away from their commercial space, just closing up shop and never opening up again.
Well, that's ultimately what's going to happen if there's nobody shopping at their store.
Exactly.
Clothing stores, restaurants, ultimately, going 3, 4, 5 months without having any income and the landlord wanting the rent, well, you'll probably be $50,000 in the hole.
Right. Yeah. So if you're a landlord that has a lot of mortgages, what do you recommend that the landlord do in terms of communicating with, let's say, the lenders, whether they're a bank or whether they're private lenders?
Well, try and reach out to your mortgage companies and find out if they will, give you a couple months off until your tenants come back to work. But it's as you said, a cascading event. If there's no rent coming in, no way to pay the mortgage unless you have some savings that you're going to dip into.
Right.
Then there's going to start to be foreclosures. But again, there's no way to get to court to start a foreclosure because the courts aren't open. And there's I believe, I'm not sure if the courts have stopped foreclosure complaints from being filed, but I know they pushed off the hearings at least March, April, and May till September.
Okay. What do you think that this effect, those two things, because you obviously represent both sides of that equation, is going to do to prices of property and prices on rents?
Well, I think, again, if the economy doesn't open up and people are be able to go back to their jobs, I don't know, maybe June, July, August, there'll be a lot of businesses empty, a lot of stores empty, and a lot of people looking to rent space. With regard to the residential market, you know, I'm not sure. I mean, tenants aren't going to be able to move into other properties if they don't have any money because they're not working. So they'll ride out their stay in the place that they're in now until the courts open up.
Now, if you have a tenant, let's say, that owes you, I don't know, let's say 3 months worth of rent, they lost their job, etc., and they're about to be evicted, what would happen if all of a sudden they also declared bankruptcy? Your eviction would get stayed, wouldn't it?
So if the bankruptcy is filed before the landlord-tenant hearing, then there could be no hearing. The bankruptcy court would have precedent over the landlord-tenant case.
Mm-hmm. What do you think would happen in a case like that?
Ultimately, if the lease is over, then the landlord can go in and seek relief from the bankruptcy court. That may take another 2 to 3 months to even get your hearing back into municipal court. That will take another 2 months. So by 5 more months, the tenant's living there for free if he does file for bankruptcy.
Yeah. And what if you attempted to file your eviction and you didn't have, let's say, your business privilege or something wasn't right, and your case wasn't accepted for filing, and then you had to go to the city to get whatever paperwork you needed?
So that's a great question.
Yeah.
About a year ago, the courts have developed a form called non-compliance.
Mm-hmm.
So when you file your landlord-tenant complaint, you're either in compliant or you're not in compliant. If
Right.
you're in compliant, you can take a default judgment if the tenant doesn't show. If you're not in compliant, you got to wait for the judge and then show the judge your license, your certificate, your lead safe certificate to even get possession. So it's not, you can't take a default if you're not in compliant at the time you file the landlord-tenant complaint. That's the safety net that the courts have developed to help the tenants. And it's every single ordinance that has come out in the last 2-3 years has been in favor of the tenant. There's not any laws or ordinances in favor of the landlord in Philadelphia. And as you know, in September, everybody's going to have to do a lead safe certificate, whether the property has a child less than 7 or has your grandfather living in.
Do you see the city of Philadelphia possibly passing some form of coronavirus protection for tenants, putting the onus on landlords, maybe just like they did for like lead paint?
That's a great question, Dave. Put yourself sitting as a judge and the landlord comes in front of the court and says to the judge, hey, I haven't received rent for 3 months, which is April, May, and June. And the tenant says, hey, judge, I don't have any job to pay the rent because the restaurants aren't open.
Right.
You'll have, I believe, half the city out living in the streets because they have no money to pay their rent.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Then you're
Well,
talking about
I think
homelessness,
that
civil unrest, violence.
the judges are going to have a heart in favor of the tenant more than the landlord if they're out of work and can't pay the rent. I mean, that's going to be everybody's defense.
Yeah.
It's going to be crazy times when the court opens up.
One moment. What was the question, Michael?
If you have a commercial rental, you have your commercial tenant.
Yeah.
He's on a month-to-month right now. And if he hasn't made a new renewal on the lease, could you get him out, or you'll have to wait till the courts open up?
I mean, if he's got a viable business and hold on a second. You can't just get him out. You need the court's permission. Okay. He's asking if you have a commercial tenant and
the lease is over.
Lease is over. Can you get him out? I said, well, you need to wait for the courts to open back up to formally evict him. I mean, you can ask him to leave, and he can leave of his own volition. Yes, David?
That is correct. But I think most of the tenants, and there is even a hotline, which would be great if some landlord calls the hotline and plays that they're a tenant, and
okay.
The hotline's going to tell the person who's calling, yeah, just the courts aren't going to open till June or July. Just keep living there. If the landlord doesn't have a license or a certificate, etc. But in a commercial lease, it's a business to business. It's a lot different than a residential lease. And to your question, Dave, once that landlord gets to court, he's going to be able to terminate a lease. I don't see any problem with that case.
I mean, go ahead. What I was going to say to Michael was, my God, like if you have a tenant that's paying you who has a viable business, I would try to keep that person in there and keep him you got to be his friend and, do everything to make sure his business is successful. I think what's going to be our saving grace, if we're smart enough as a collective, is to all pull together however we can. If not, it's going to get very Darwinian out there, and it's not the type of world that we want to live in. Yes?
I go to my building once a week. There's 2 people in a 15-story building. That's it, all day long.
Wow.
And you're right next to you're next to the hospital, the hotel, the Holiday Inn, where they're housing all the doctors and nurses, correct?
And the homeless on the top floor, I believe, who have the virus.
Wow.
Yeah. So the whole street's shut off. And, I think people are going to be scared to come back to work. Even if the governor opens up our city, which I don't think is going to happen until probably sometime in June or July, we'll be the last county to open up.
You think so?
I know so.
I think so.
So I have, I'm a tenant. I'm a tenant for a commercial space right in Center City.
Oh boy,
and
I forgot.
Yeah, so
She's right around the corner from me, Dave. She's at 12th and Chestnut.
Okay.
And my business is a little recession proof. It was more recession proof before in 2008. It's a sex toy store. But I've been getting calls almost every day. So that's encouraging, but that's not, we don't know what's going to happen. So I did not pay rent in April. My real estate lawyer said, do not pay rent. If you cannot open, you're not going to pay rent. And if your landlord has a problem with it, they need to contact me. So if we're not open for June and July, I'm not going to pay rent as well. I don't own anything personally. Everything that I own is under LLCs, all my properties. And after this comes out, I plan to negotiate with my landlord and say, listen, I'll pay you 1/3 of the rent that I had before, because I don't even know what this economy is going to be like. And
well, it's going to be deflationary. I think we can probably
only
only
thing they
be
want to
on
do for me right now is waive my late fees of $200. And in return, I just laughed because I can't legally open the store anyway. So my concern is after 3 months of not paying rent, and I finally say, okay, this is the deal. I'm going to pay you a third or half of the rent, take it or leave it. And there's really not somebody else who's going to take my place anyway.
Right.
Like
That's
in
what I
this type
said.
of
That's why I
environment.
said to Miguel, if you have a decent tenant that actually
Yeah,
can
you got to work
make
with them.
money, work with them.
Right. So
One
my
second,
concern
Michael.
is
Mike, you gotta wait a minute. Go
if
ahead,
they
Karen.
take me to court, like I'm concerned that I have great credit. I don't want my credit ruined at all. But my concern is, will the judge look at me and say, hey, she doesn't, like, what are you going to do? Make her file for bankruptcy, or are you going to work with the tenant? Like, that's I'm playing out the scenario 3 or 4 months from now.
Isn't the lease in the name of your company?
Yeah, but you always have to personally guarantee commercial.
I don't know. Did you or didn't you?
I do.
You personally guaranteed it? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I've been a tenant there for 7 years.
Right.
So what are your thoughts about
What are
that?
your thoughts on that, David?
Well, I used to own a building at 12th and Walnut, and I know you're at 12th and Chestnut.
Why, have you been to my store?
Uh,
I have not. I'll be right up front.
Nothing wrong if you have, David.
There's nothing wrong.
Absolutely not.
We make a difference one vibration at a time.
You're making me laugh, but that's good. I need to laugh a little bit in today's world. You can always go to court and make an agreement and pay 50% of the rent or pay a third of the rent. But if you go in front of the judge and you tell, hey, judge, I've been out of business, what's he going to tell you? I don't know how it's going to play out. That's everybody's defense. It was never a defense before.
1 second, Mike.
I have nobody to come in to buy my goods. I can't pay my rent. So this landlord that you're with should work with you. Should. I don't know what my landlord's going to do. Nobody in the whole building is paid rent. Nobody. You can't even go into my building.
Have you heard about this? The government talking about passing a bill whereby they're going to come in and pay everyone's rent and everyone's mortgage.
I like that.
I haven't. Shirley, have you heard that?
I haven't, but I have a question for you, Dave. Prior to COVID,
Denenberg, that's not me, right?
yes,
Okay.
you're Al to me. I don't know.
Okay.
Prior to all of this happening in early February, we communicated about a tenant that I have that appears to have abandoned the property. I sent a certified letter just kind of confirming that she abandoned it to see if, she would acknowledge that she was still there. The certified letter was returned back to me unanswered, and there's still been no movement there. Everything is just as it was, 2.5 months ago.
Where's the property?
I'm sorry?
Where's the property?
Frankfurt.
Okay. I might have people from the church for it, is why I'm asking, because I have people that contact me every day that need a place to live. Nice people.
Yeah. Okay. So my question is, I've reached out to her via email, text, certified letter saying it seems you've abandoned the property. If I move her, the property, there was a leak or something that she was not attending to because she's not there. If I went in, do I have any kind of a leg to stand on to move her stuff somewhere else? I won't trash it, but maybe house it somewhere else.
Put it in storage.
Yeah, put it in storage and then just start preparing the property. And if she never comes back, I don't know what to do.
Well, once you're in possession of it, I would presume that.
I said David, not Al. No, I'm
Well, I
kidding.
know.
Let Dave Stockman answer it. He knows more
You want to
than
hear
I
my
know.
answer?
Yes.
I've had similar things happen, and I did exactly what you did. And if they come back later and complain, I say, sue me. Because once I'm in possession of the property, it's mine. And I can demonstrate if I had to a judge and to them, like, look, you know, I sent you certified mail, return receipt requested. If you want to sue me, just go ahead and sue me. That's it. You got to take your chances sometimes. But I know that's definitely
David?
probably not the answer David would give you.
And what's going on?
So I practice CYA. If the
Right.
courts were open, I would tell you to spend a couple of dollars, get a hearing, and in 60 days, you'll have that tenant out, you'll have possession, and in 10 days after that, you could throw all their stuff out. But you're not going to get to court at least until the earliest, July 1st, maybe July 15th.
Right.
What proof can you have that the tenant abandoned the property? Is the electric off? Is the gas off? Is there food in the refrigerator?
There's
Again,
there's no food in the refrigerator. The kitchen is completely like caved in. The ceiling caved in from the leak. And so there's no food in the fridge. The mail has been piling up for months. So I collected the mail that's been piling up. I don't know if the electric's on. I guess I could find, how would I find that out? I guess I could just call Pico and ask them.
well, if you went in the
Okay,
house,
great.
if you got a locksmith and went in and turned the lights on, you'd see if they're on or off.
Right.
But
Yes,
if you're telling me that mail has been piling up and you have all the mail and you can take pictures of that,
yeah,
I feel more comfortable that there's nobody going in and out of the property.
okay.
Is there clothes there?
So they're kind of borderline hoarders. Everything's in like trash bags. It's all clothes. It's not like, it's like
That's
clothes.
called luggage in the hood, baby.
Yeah, so
No
it's
Louis
not-
Vuitton there.
I mean, the back bedroom is just, you can't even open up the door because she has it stuffed with things. So
That's like every house I've ever been in.
really,
Yeah. You're like, you live here? Do you not live here? Or what's going on? But yeah, look, if you need my help.
If you want to play it really safe, take all her stuff, pay $100, put it into a storage facility, and file a landlord-tenant complaint.
okay, but you're saying that could be like July or August. So if I just go ahead and start doing the renovation, and even if I rented it out and she sued me for something, how would they determine what the amount is that she could even get from me?
So very subjective.
Only what her personal property would be.
Oh, so then it's well worth it because her personal property is probably worth about $100 maybe.
And I hear what you're saying. That's why I'm saying, go put it in a storage facility, pay the first month, and bring me the key.
Okay.
Betty, Shirley, if you need my help, let me know. I actually even have a guy on the call right now that can help you.
I do need your help. It's actually
Okay.
a property that Lana and I own together, so.
I have a feeling I know where it is.
Okay.
I used to own a lot of stuff around there.
All right, yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
you ready for me?
Okay. Yeah, Miguel's got a question. What is it? Can you guys hear him?
Thank you, David.
You're welcome, Shirley.
Going back to the commercial tenant,
No one there.
if they don't pay, and they pay, let's say, half the rent,
Yeah.
will they pay the other half at some point? Can we get that, go after the back rent after the court's open?
Did you hear what he said?
Yep. So what the question was, is that if the tenant in a commercial lease pays one half the rent, you can always go and sue the tenant for the other half when the courts open up. When that is, I don't know.
Right. But here's the other thing you need to really consider, Miguel. All of us, probably David included, I presume. How old are you, David? You're 60, right? Yeah.
60.
Okay. So you're a baby boomer, right? Technically?
I guess 1960. Is that the baby boomer year? I guess so. I could
Yeah.
be the oldest one on the line.
I think so. So for all throughout, starting with all the baby boomers and till now, right? We've all been accustomed to this thing called inflation, right? So we buy a property and today it's worth $100,000. We get a mortgage on it. We pay it for 15 years or 30 years. We sell it, 10 years later, and it's worth $300,000 or $250,000. Everybody with me so far? So we've been living in an inflationary economy. Well, now things have flipped, and now we're going to have to learn to live with deflation. So yesterday, a barrel of oil went to negative $40. Did you hear about that in the news?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So it means that if you have a barrel of oil, you have to pay someone $40 to get rid of it and to store it. And when has that ever happened? That I know of? David, have you ever heard of that happening before?
Never.
Never, right? So, we also are going to possibly have, we already have zero interest rates, but we could possibly have negative interest rates. Negative interest rates, the bank is going to charge you to keep your money there. Is that right, David?
I have no idea, but the interest rates are very low right now.
Right.
You can get a mortgage at 1.5%, 2%.
If you qualify for a mortgage at all, and less people are going to qualify, because why would the bank make sorry?
You have no income.
Right.
Yeah. There's no rent coming in. You have no income.
Okay, well, he said, what about collateral? Well, what about collateral? Your collateral is going to be worth, so if you had a property worth $500,000, arguably now it's worth $200,000, $250,000 in
Plus, if
deflation.
there's no income, then they can't even do the income approach. Like,
Right,
why
and if
would you
there's no-
even try to go after the other half? Like, work with the guy. I'm not going to pay the other half if they say to me, "Would you do
Right.
better and pay the
Well,
other
that's-
half?"
Right, that's the other thing.
That's only if he refuses to pay the other half. I get that.
I think that you need to, language is super important right now. It's not that he won't, he just can't. And look at it from this perspective. If you don't work with him, so let's say your rent's 1,000 and he says, look, I'll pay you 500, right? And you say no, and then you get rid of him. So then you go in, you renovate the property, and you try to rent it again for $1,000, and you come to find that the market's changed and all you can really get is $500. So you got rid of a tenant who was willing to pay you $500 for a new one that was willing, that can only pay you $500. So what have you gained? Nothing. You've lost time, you lost energy, and you just created an enemy. Am I making sense?
Perfect. This is going to be, when the courts open up, there's going to be a flood of cases, a flood.
Right. And the problem with these cases is there's what the law says, but judges are human beings. And they're going to do what they think is right, possibly not just for you as a landlord or the tenant, but what's best for Philadelphia. For like, do you want all these families living in the street? I don't, because hungry people get violent, right?
Every
you want,
day.
You want this to turn into Lord of the fucking Rings? I don't want to live. I mean, do you want to live in that city? I mean,
So
I don't.
Dave,
I want my kids.
I have a question, Dave. So right now the courts are closed, so you cannot evict them. Can you even send them a 30-day notice?
You could.
Absolutely. Great question.
Yeah.
So you can continue to communicate with your tenant. You can threaten that, if you don't pay something, that you're going to move forward when the court's open. I have over 300 cases sitting waiting for a new hearing date, and I'm a small lawyer. There's going to be thousands and thousands of cases that are backlogged. How can the court hear more than 100 cases a day? There's going to be 10,000 cases to hear.
The only way they can do it is if they get judges out of retirement, possibly. I guess, right?
Yeah. But do you want to sit in a room in July with 200 people and face to face?
Especially elderly judges. I wouldn't.
Or how about elderly citizens?
Oh yeah.
I don't know where they've been.
Yeah, that's
I don't
true.
think a judge wants to even be near you.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that.
Yeah. How the
Yeah.
court's going to have 200 people sitting in a room?
Yeah, good
Next-
point. I didn't really think about that.
And the courtroom only holds 200 people.
Would they consider virtual?
Well, yeah, he said, would they consider virtual? We just had that conversation because he got a letter or a phone call, an
I
email.
got an email
You got
from
an
Judge
email
Moss
from the president.
trying to set up a virtual hearing.
Right, but that wasn't for landlord tenant, right? That was for small claims.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you hear what I
How
said?
many of your tenants can go Zoom? I don't know anybody.
And a lot of the tenants that David represents are poor, maybe don't have a smartphone, don't know Zoom from Zam, and not only that, but they would have to consent to that. And if I were a tenant, I mean, hell, I'd want my day in court where I can look a landlord in the eye and look a judge in the eye and tell him my story, not over Zoom. It seems far more personal, and chances are I would maybe lose over Zoom.
Well,
I would not consent to that.
Dave, how do you present evidence over Zoom? Do I hold my picture up like this and say, "Hey, Judge, this is what it looked like"?
I can't see that.
Of course. These will be very, very, very interesting times.
Yeah.
When the court figures out how to do it. Maybe they're going to leave you in the hallway 6 feet apart and call you out one at a time.
Well, now I'm really going to get into something else with you, because so far most of the people on this call are landlords, wannabe landlords, etc. So they see you as their friend and not an attack dog, because they're not on the business end of you, right? So let's say I filed an eviction and you're representing the tenant. What's going to be your best defense against me as a landlord?
Well, there are 4 defenses right now. One is the residential rental license. You have to have it current.
Yes.
How do you renew your residential rental license if it expired in May? How do you renew it? I don't know. Is the city's website, you can renew it now? I don't think you can, because I've tried to get a certificate of rental suitability and you can't get that either.
I got a rental suitability last week.
Is that Kelly?
Yes, that's Kelly.
On Eclipse.
On Eclipse, yes.
I
Okay.
renewed some rental
Of course.
licenses a few weeks ago.
So I think it was down because I tried to get on Eclipse when they were changing it over, but they must have got it all working. But
Okay. What's the second one?
let's say you don't have
on
internet,
Eclipse
go
like
online,
2 days ago.
go down to the city.
I didn't hear what you said. Say it again.
So let's say you're a mom and pop landlord. You got one rental and you don't have a computer to go online, and you always go down to the MSB building, but the MSB building's closed. You have to find somebody who can help you do it online.
Okay.
That's one.
Yeah.
2, you have a lead safe certificate. Maybe there's a minor child under 7,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are my typical defenses. Maybe there's, problems with the house. Maybe there's, the sewer's backed up. The same defenses that I would always raise if I represented a tenant when I go to court.
Mm-hmm. And those have all
And
been
then
effective?
the judges are going to be super sympathetic to any tenant. And when we get back to court, that judge, I have no job. I'd have a heart. I'd say that landlord has money. March, April, May, June, the rent's not due. Ongoing rent going forward.
And if I hired you as my lawyer to represent me in court, I'm the tenant, and I'm not working, how long could you keep me in a house?
Well, I would say if you came to me today you're going to be there at least until July 30th before anybody can even get you out, before the constable can come and knock at your door. So that's half of April, all of May, all of June, all July.
And then after that, and what about if I go bankrupt?
Well, you'd have to file the bankruptcy before the municipal court hearing. If you did that, you're in there for another 90 days after that.
90 days plus, because the landlord would have to apply for relief from that court so that they can be kicked back to municipal court.
Yep.
And then by that point, there might be other subsequent filings, and you'd have to start all over again, wouldn't you? Or would you get a hearing right away?
Has to have a relistment of your case that you filed.
Right.
I'd take another 30 days, and you can appeal that.
Then you can appeal that in common pleas, correct?
Yeah, all low-income tenants could appeal by placing 1/3 of their rent into escrow.
It's escrow.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
Dave, are you allowed to pre-qualify a tenant's income and credit before showing the house during this COVID-19 crisis?
What was it?
Say that one more time.
Are you allowed to pre-qualify a potential tenant before showing them the property if they're vacant, based on their credit and income, before you show them a property?
I don't see why not. If they're going to provide you their social security number, I don't see why not.
I have a vacant property, and I have it on Zillow, and this potential tenant called me and said that they want to look at the property, and I told them that send me your name and your email so I could send you an application. So once you complete the application process, which there's an application fee and credit check, then I'll show you the property if you're qualified. And she said that it's against the law. You're discriminating me by not letting me look at the property.
Well, why don't you put the property online?
It is online.
Oh, then, I mean, I don't know anybody who's meeting anybody face to face these days. I'm not letting anybody in my office. You want to come to my door? You stay outside. I'll put the letter underneath the door, even though I have let 1 or 2 people come in.
I'm coming down, David.
You're not allowed in.
Yeah, because I have tried to make appointments for people to look at houses, and like they all come at the same time. I was like, oh, no, you cannot come in at the same time. You have to just stay outside one at a time and then come in. And after that, they took the application, but then nobody qualifies. So it's just a waste of my time.
Oh, okay, I understand the question better now. In other words, before, I think what she's saying is she would let people look at the property, right? And
before I would let people look at the property,
right, and then they apply afterward. You're doing it the other way around now.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the business practice, and you're just, if anything, you can make the argument that you're practicing safety, not discrimination, although they can look the same.
Yeah, and you could also say, listen, I don't even, we're not even supposed to see each other. I don't want to, like, endanger my life if you're not even a real candidate.
Right.
But guys,
that's what I told her, and she said, I'm gonna go to the Realtor Association and
she should.
to let her go to it.
Anyway.
That's standard procedure. You can't run around 100 times and find out that you ran around and wasted your time for 100 people that never qualified. How are you going to make any money? Time is valuable. Forget about the virus. I mean, it's standard procedure. That's in my opinion. I don't know. I'm not the attorney, but
That's not standard procedure, but it's whatever she wants.
Safety.
Quick
By the
question.
way, who's speaking?
My name is David Cohen.
Okay.
Izzy's friend.
Santiago?
So, yeah.
Okay.
So guys, so again, what you're saying is that you guys actually take tenants out without qualifying, at least doing a pre-qual or a simple application?
I mean, that's a standard business practice. That's nothing unusual, but now it's not like showing houses, like where you're going to get someone financing. You know, most people have some kind of income. But you know, they're similar. It's just treated differently by most brokers or most homeowners. That's all. It's not a big deal. If she decides to go to the real estate commission, there's nothing you can do to stop her.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, but there's probably nothing they can do about that because, say for example, you have 150 properties, and now this is occupying all of your time. This is now you're all in. This is what you do, and now all day long, your job is to show your rentals. So just imagine. I mean, you wouldn't want to have just a simple application to kind of not waste 2 or 3 hours with somebody, or if you're doing that all day, or no?
I don't. We've already been over this. I mean, I don't. Neither one of us thinks she's done anything wrong. And
I'm saying she hasn't done anything wrong. I think she did the right thing.
We all agree.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any questions for David?
No.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
David, thank you. I have to jump on another call. Thanks, Al.
Great. I really enjoyed this.
Good. Stop into the shop when we're open.
I definitely will.
Months from now. Take care.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, David.
Be safe, everybody.
Great call, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
awesome.
you for the call.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Not yet.
Right.
So anybody else? Wait, Michael.
Comedy. Kept fixing them. Well, thank you. So have a cookie.
He said thank you. Bye.
Hey, thank you.
All right.
We'll chat.
Bye.
Bye.
Headed up to the mountains.
Enjoy.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.